Maritime Matters is brought to you live by Bahamas Maritime Connection.
What is maritime?
Maritime, simply put, relates to navigation or commerce on the high seas.
Some say money makes the world go round. I say ships move the money that make the world move.
Who navigates those large international ships?
How often are international ships required to be surveyed and inspected?
Maritime also protects our seas and borders by way of our local Bahamas Defense
It is
Force.
very sad to say that out of 1,500 plus ships that are registered under the Bahamian flag, only a very small amount of Bahamians are employed.
Maritime Matters.
And pleasant good evening to you, our valued listening audience. Welcome one, welcome all, welcome to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. Our producer for the night, of course, is Mr. Sensational himself, the great Mr. Craig Gibson. We are coming to you live via Love 97 FM. Notice ain't no recording tonight. That's the real deal. You call, I will answer. Ain't like the last two times when I was in the studio and I tell you all, oh, you know this one played before. No, this is brand new. This, what the date is? This is Tuesday, the 24th day of June, 2025. And if it's Tuesday, you know the deal. It's maritime. Tick, 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 tick. Matters. We encourage that if you're driving and tuning with us, please do so cautiously and ensure to take your time in getting wherever it is you are trying to get safely. As the saying goes, drive to arrive alive. Our sponsors for tonight's show are 101 Pharmacy and also Island Care Pharmacy. For all your medication needs, check out my good little cuz. Boy, Shani got me a little scared the other day. She going on the boat like she's a boatman, a seaman. Girl, Shani, y'all better watch yourself. You don't be getting all over the place on these boats and ain't letting us know y'all stopping. Man, we thought Shani was in trouble. Anyway, Shantia McBride and her lovely team at 101 Pharmacy in Nassau, and of course, Island Care Pharmacy in Freeport. You can fill the prescription at the store or send your refills via the online site, 101pharmacy.com. That's 101 Pharmacy, all lowercase, all one word, .com. The three locations are East Street South. And when you go in there, you know Joyce, the pharmacist, and she will get you whatever you need. Whatever you need for that little thing to move away, she will deal with that. That's one on Charles Sanders Highway. That's for my little cuz, my next little cuz. Just run the money. So when you go in there, you know you could ask for oh Lord, look at me get killed tonight. Albert and Albert's sister. Anyway, ask for Albert's. Why when Ansel catch up with me? Ask for Albert's sister Ansel. And tell her how good cuz Glenn send y'all, and y'all looking for that little something after something, eh? That's how that go. That's 101 Pharmacy, Charles Sanders Highway, East Street South, and of course in Freeport, where my big cuz Steph is, that is Island Care Pharmacy, and you know they run things up in there. They will make sure you straight. You will be straight. We are secondly sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited. Yeah, that's us. BMC. At BMC we provide a full slate of ISPS Maritime Security. So we talk a little bit about ISPS, but no, anyway, we ain't talking about ISPS tonight, right? A good night to my Auntie May. I know Auntie May listening, but Auntie May miss me so much. She told me, say, boy, I'm so glad to know you back. You've been all over the place all the time. At least we's keeping in touch. You know, me and my Auntie May don't miss a day. So good night to Auntie May. Our number one fan up there in Freeport. You know, Auntie May is 92 years old and going strong. Auntie May, ease it up. Boy, that's my girl. I tell like I try to be like her when I grow up. I don't know if I can be that fortunate, but I can try. You are listening to Maritime Matters. And on this show, we talk maritime. Tonight, we engage a litany of recent maritime hot topics up in the papers, in our dailies. A lot of stuff going on right now. We ain't gonna talk about the international stuff with the bombs dropping all over the place and these wars still can't come to conclusion after all these bombs killing up all these people. Let's stick to maritime tonight, right? We stick to maritime tonight. I've been away from this chair for like 3 weeks now. My goodness, I missed this chair. But, still a lot of work trying to prepare for these shows. And I don't mind. I take them on. Excuse me. So, the sizzling hot topics we want to engage tonight include the following. The allocated $2.25 million for removal of sunken vessels. What do you mean by that? Will this be the funding to remove all those sunken wrecks from like Porter's Key Dock and all around Nassau coastline and up at Abaco with a tug and bad sink and all over the place where we got sunken ships and vessels in the Bahamas, and no one is moving them. So, our law say we'll move it and then make you pay for it. So now we can move it. And when we don't move it, we plan on spanking. But I don't know why we don't put some of these people in court beforehand and cause them to move it. Charge them with having it there. Anyway, I know lawyer ain't trying to be none, but all I know is we got some money now to move some of these things, and I want to see some things moving as of July 01. Let's get it cracking. We don't know if the Port Department go push and make things happen the way it's supposed to have been happening now that all this money is available. $2.25 million? Yeah, that's some good dollars. And that's just a drop in the bucket when it comes to trying to remove all these vessels, but guess what? That's a start. And if some see us moving the things and billing the other one, billing them, the other one may say, but I'm waiting for them, but they can charge me more money. Let me try and move this myself. Because some of them got money, they can move it, But they get on political ties. You go try fool with that. You wasting your time. I can tell you. I've been in the system and I know how this thing go. Politics to save a lot of people from doing the things they would normally do because they got the money. But if they ain't gonna spend the money because they got a politician friend, they ain't spending it. That's how our world run in this country, right? So the government has allocated in the budget $2.25 million for removal of sunken vessels all over the Bahamas. So that's like I say, that big deal, but that's a big start. We want to talk about RCI. They are claiming that they have 150 position or posts to fill right there on the western side of Paradise Island. The land they just clearing away and developing for their, what the thing name? The beach club, the Royal Beach Club, they call it. So that's supposed to be state of the art, something to marvel at, similar to what Carnival going up there in Celebration Key in Grand Bahama. That is something to marvel at. Once it's done, it's going to be a sight to behold. I'm sure the people coming off the ship will be having a whale of a time. But I always got to butter some of these things, especially these type of things. That employment, those 150 posts, are they all Bahamians? Are those posts all for Bahamian nationals? Or I may even say residents. For Bahamians that have the status to work in those posts. Or are they going to be like, the key what RCI own up in the Berry Islands, what's the name? Coco Key. Where very recently, there's a big uproar. And during that uproar, we found that Bahamians outnumbered like 10-1. They got for every Bahamian, they got like 9-10 foreigners. Why is that the case? So if you got 150 posts for this one on PI Beach Club, aren't you required to do the same thing at Coco Key? Hire, firstly, Bahamians, so that most of the staff at Coco Key would be Bahamian. You ain't got to go far. You got Berry Islands right there. Bullocks Harbor, Great Harbor Key right there. And if push come to shove, you do like how Bimini do, you bring them in from Freeport and Nassau. But I could guarantee you, if you're paying the right kind of money, and the right kind of money, you ain't paying any money. Because the hotels all paying the right kind of money. But you know, these ships are so hoggish. They hogs, because they making plenty of money. I can tell you that. Man, they losing money doing a lot of money during COVID, I must say. They lost a lot of money. I think they were losing in the range of over $100 million a day in revenue. And I ain't talking about profits. I say revenue. That's the amount of money they collect on a daily basis. Over 100 million. Right? And of course, they got a lot of expenditure out of that. They got to pay staff. They got to pay for boat ships to come out of dry dock, ships to do surveys, ship fuel. They got to pay for food. They got to pay for everything. So out of that, over $100 million a day, they spending a good chunk of that back, right? When I say good chunk, probably over 80% back, right? If they want to maintain and keep the fleet going. And that's what they all do it. Because they're all surviving now for years, right? They even survived COVID, which is really unprecedented for ships that couldn't operate for over a year. But anyway, this RCI, we're going to watch them very closely. Because like I said from last year, I don't want to see one pillar case coming off one of those ships talking about, oh, this to go to the key. No food, people only. And the people are mainly the tourists who go in there to have a good time. I must, busboy and waiter and bartenders coming off the ship talking about, oh, we got a station on the key. Station on what key? No. We know y'all is do that on Coco Key. And we know y'all breaking the law. So all this got to stop. And if you could do it here, you could do it there. And let's talk to all of them. Let's talk to Khan. Anyway, next topic. Ladies and gentlemen, the number to call if you want in on this discussion as I go on, because we got an hour and a half of this. 326-8255. You could call anytime. I ready to answer whenever you're ready to call. The next topic we're going to talk about is the charter fees for yachts, wanting to do charters in the Bahamas. Now, one of the cabinet ministers, or he ain't no cabinet minister because he's in the opposition, one of the FNM candidates, or members of parliament, not candidates, he's actually the member of parliament. He is claiming that this change that the government vying to make, I think it's supposed to happen coming the next fiscal year, whereby we are now going to move away from charging VAT to the foreign yacht charter vessels. Because, I think that was a stupid idea to begin with. I always express that. I don't know if anybody in the government listens to what I say, and I don't even care. But I'm happy to see that they change it from charging 10% VAT to adding that 10% onto the port fees to be able to come and charter in our country. You see, it always used to be 4%. And follow me now. It was 4% from I was working at the port over 20 years ago. So if it was 4% then, and it's still 4% now, and you adding 10% onto it, something wrong with that? We got the most beautiful waters in the entire world. No country in the world should be charging more for taxes to bring people chartering through the waters. I want you to know them people be spending big bucks to charter on those ships. Big bucks. I'm talking about if a ship is anything over 60 foot long, and most of them are over 60 foot long, that's over $100,000 a week. You all hear me? A week. So if 12 of us, because they ain't never care more than 12 people, 12 of us decide we could charter this 80 footer. Now we know that could be, we could split that up into 12. So if it costs $120,000, each one of us only paying $10,000. Man, some of them cabins on the cruise ship cost more than $10,000 for a week. If you don't be very, very careful, you could pay up to $10,000 for first class on British Airways from Nassau to London, 6 times a year. So that ain't no big deal to them. They pay that $10,000 per person with ease. And then on top of that now, remember, they got to pay for all the catering they get. So while the people working in our hotels here paying 15% gratuity, on those ships they charge like 20% gratuity on those charter yachts. So on top of that $110,000 or $120,000 we say, they got another 20% just to pay for what we call the thing when they get served when the food comes, gratuity. And on top of that, they got some incidentals where they pay another 10-15% to bring other things on board and all that. This separate apart from what they done pay for the charter now. So now they done paying some 140,000. So what's wrong with if you could be in the most beautiful waters in the world, paying a 14% tax? We know you all got money, otherwise you wouldn't be chartering this yacht. That's like saying to the person who can fly in first class, oh well, if you want some extra this or extra, well they can't say that. But if you go in business class, certain things you can get that the first class people get. And if you go in premium or coach, you can get half the things what the business class people get. So you get what you pay for. So in this country, just take out of the airplane charging you all the money, the cruise ships and the yachts charging you all the money, we want you to pay us some tax while you're here using our waters and stuff. That's where you're making your money. So I don't know why people in the F&M party would express that they think the government is wrong for charging 14% charter fees. And I can tell you why I think that is even low. Simply because if you or me decide we can get in the charter business and we buy a luxury yacht, a 70-foot luxury yacht, and we tie in with one of the big time hotels, and every time they get people who want to go, see, we could do that because we local, we Bahamians. We could get a boat registration certificate and do that. We ain't need no foreign charter yacht permit to charter in the Bahamas. We could do that with our boat registration certificate, right? And we get a big time boat because we mix up with one of them big, them people who playing money, and we throw them something every now and then because they ain't got no ownership. We want the thing outright because we don't register it under the Boat Registration Act. So it got to be 100% Bahamian owned, right? And on top of that, we decide we could do those charters. Do you know that me or you, the Bahamian, got to pay 10% VAT? We got to charge our people 10% VAT. So listen to what was happening. Let me tell you how dumb this was. The people were paying 4% when we wasn't paying nothing. When VAT came around, like everybody else, we had to pay 10%. Even for our local charter boats, taking people out on charter. The foreigners still paying 4%. Right? So we paying more than them to charter people in our waters, the same set of people we getting after. That make any sense? So now you know what the balance is? The Bahamian boat owner or yacht owner still paying 10% VAT. But now we saying these foreigners, if they want charter in our waters, let them pay 14% port fee. I think it should be 20%, but let's sell for 14 for now. But some of these F&M, because it's the second time. First it was the leader saying he don't think it's fair for them to be paying this 10% VAT. And I agreed. Shouldn't be paying no 10% VAT because VAT should not apply to those international entities. Excuse me. But You can't be paying 4% when the Bahamians paying 10%, eh? So you apply that 10% to that form. Bring that 4% up to I was saying 15%, but let's say 14%. Excuse me. And look like that's what the government decided the approach they could take. I know they listen to me, like I say, I ain't talk to nobody about it in government. I talk about it on the show. And I welcome anybody to call and say what they think. So I think that, we don't want this charter fee to become a political football. When the PLP and it up to 14%. When the FNMNO, they bring it down to 4% again. PLP come back in, going back to 4%. No, because we don't want to be playing with these international people like this. These people got money, these people mean business, and their business is set up based on our laws. So let's, first of all, put it into perspective. If the Bahamians paying 10%, they shouldn't be paying 10% or less. They should be paying more. Now we only charge them 4% more, which really levels the playing field of what it was from the beginning. It was always paying 4% more. So I don't know why any Bahamian, whether it's a politician or seaman or whoever, would have an issue with that. The only issue I think we should have with that is perhaps they should be paying a little more. Because if the Bahamian paying 10%, man, my goodness, you mean they bringing in people from away, all them rich yachts they got, and they only paying 4% more than the Bahamian? Paying 4%, yeah, there are people who get paid 4% more than the Bahamians who live here and trying to get people to do the same thing? No. I say no. Calling on Maritime Matters, hello.
Good afternoon, Captain Brain.
Captain Brain, my brother. How are you, sir?
Man, I am excellent and getting better. You were good. You were missing in action for a while, but we're happy to have you back.
Boy, let me tell you, I missed this chair. I'm glad I'm back in the chair. Boy, but the only one thing missing out of this room right now, that's you in the next show.
but I'm calling in. I definitely want to weigh in on this very, very, very crucial topic that you're discussing at the moment, particularly particularly as relates to the charter yachts.
Yeah, but before you go to that, did you hear the part with the $2.25 million allocation for removing sunken vessels?
Well, I heard that, and to be honest, I don't know, man. We have done this. We have been around this mulberry bush on so many occasions, and I can tell you, when I was at the port, we completely cleared the harbor. One hurricane season come by, and then you have another cadre of boats that sink, and even in the absence of hurricane, you have dilapidated boats that are not well maintained that sinks, and seemingly nothing happens that causes owners to say, something. I am gonna move this boat, or that prompts the port to say, something. We're gonna move this at the owner's expense or whatever. But I just think I'm not certain that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for clearing the harbor. I know that we have one or two larger vessels that may be a little bit more costly to remove. But again, I think that's what the insurances and that the yachts that the boat's supposed to have in place. That's some of the things that they supposed to have built into their insurance plans. And if not, then maybe it's time for us to specifically address that in insurance policies, so that at the end of the day, the government is and the people of the Bahamas not saddled with these hefty fees and whatnot, because it seems like we on a spinning wheel. We go round and round and round. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, we'll be going round and round and round because we're enforcing our laws when it comes to allowing vessels to sit on that dock that are non-operational. To begin with, you know how many vessels at Porter's Key that do not move?
Oh, of course. There's lots.
So why would we allow that? Why would we allow that to be the case?
Well,
and the law speaks to that specifically, that if it's unoperational, it should not be at the dock.
Well, that is something that in this country that is something that's a big issue. It's I call it politics, right? But at the end of the day, we need to get beyond all the nonsense and the noise and all that stuff, and we need to look over what is good for the Bahamas and for the Bahamian people and for the Bahamian purse. And it's just ridiculous that a vessel gets vessels are sat on the dock and eventually sink, and And then there's no liability to nobody other than the government and the people of the Bahamas.
And now the government is allocating this $2.5 million, so $2.25 million. So you don't think that by the provision of this $2.25 million, some of these ship owners will feel more comfortable to say, man, if it's saying the government got money to move it?
Of course, and that has been the mindset for many eons now. But the government has, on a consistent basis, been removing these vessels. When they remove and we clear the entire harbor, then several others just pop up out of nowhere, drop anchor or whatever until such time as they sink, and then the saga starts all over again. And so yeah, this is an excellent opportunity, a ripe opportunity. I personally believe that. I don't know, man. I go on the limb and say somebody's getting a good payday, because at the end of the day, you're getting 2-point-something million to remove boats to the harbor that many of which should be moved by operators themselves who allowed those vessels to sink. I just don't.
Yeah, but both you and I, Cap, both you and I worked at the port, and I've always been led to or guided by the law saying it will be removed at your expense. Now, to remove it at their expense, we gotta have money to do that, eh?
Yeah. But
so could this allocation be for that purpose, to say, well, if we have to move something, we got something in the budget to move it, and then we can prosecute this fella and get the money back?
Well, I suspect that may be the case. It's just that I am very, very afraid that we're gonna move it, but getting the money back, that's the issue of concern for me.
That's a matter of prosecution, eh? But what you're saying is you have the will. The government gotta have the will to prosecute these people.
Oh, indeed. and that therein lies the issue. When you're gonna pay to move it, yeah, you're gonna pay to move it.
Oh my goodness, we just in a quagmire.
I'm telling you, because at the end of the day, the ship owners and how they gonna pay those ship owners, how they gonna pay the government back? The government is not, particularly in these politically charged environments, is not gonna go and do what they really need to do to cause these things to be paid, because at the end of the day, everybody has a responsibility, and if one entity doesn't look after his or her responsibilities, then it falls on the masses, and simply I don't have no faith in any government to cause things to be paid back.
If they want to press me, let me see them lock up one. Lock up one. He say he can't pay, let him go to Foxtel. Let me see that happen.
You didn't even have to lock up now.
No, I want one get locked up just so the rest can understand you could get locked up.
Yeah, but what assets do you have available for the government to moving on to be able to recoup the funding that from the people's purse?
Don't worry about that. If you lock up one, the rest will move their own boat. They won't get locked up. That's my thing.
Well, Cap, I wish you luck with the lockup. I don't.
I'm just saying, I don't think they got allow themselves to be locked up. So the money, most of them got money, The money there, they just know they could get away with it, so they ain't spending the money.
Of course, spend money for what?
Yeah, so if one get locked up because he want to play stubborn, then that mean the rest could fall in line, eh?
Boy, I'm not gonna plant no corn by that range.
That's all right. But if you don't do nothing, if you don't do nothing, you take the do nothing approach. Nobody can ever do nothing either.
Yeah, but they are very simple things, Cap. Very simple. You have every day you pass, you have accidents, for example, on highways and streets and whatnot. You have persons who tear down government light posts and the like. Even camera systems that are on these poles. And
no, man, people just have to pay for them. The insurance is paid. The insurance of the car that did that.
Little boy, you're talking about when you was a little boy. People probably used to pay.
No, the insurance. The police used to make the insurance pay. They still do that.
No. That don't be nobody pays for nothing. This country is on. This country, anything buck up go, man. You don't pay for nothing.
Okay, let's flip.
Break down walls, you break down light poles, and that go like that. Nobody follows up on things to that.
Let's flip on to this.
After that incident is over, That's it. Done.
Done deal.
Done deal.
Chariot fees.
Yeah, chariot. Now, I think it's in my opinion, right? And I've been around the industry.
Yeah, man. You was a harbor master. You know the harbor. You know the runners in the harbor better than me sometimes.
I've been around this industry for a while, and I think that I've been to numerous boat shows. I've spoken with numerous captains and operators and charter companies and the like. Right?
Yes.
Most of the vessels that are being built in the North American market, and I would get and in Europe.
Yeah.
Are destined for the Caribbean, and in more particularly for the Bahamas.
Yep. Well, the Bahamas is like no other. So if you ain't coming to the Bahamas, you ain't in the game.
Yeah, most back in the day, it used to be the wider Caribbean and the like. But right now, it's the Bahamas. The Bahamas is the spot where everyone wants to bring their guests, and they are having lots and lots of good memories without having to repeat anything, right?
Yeah, but you and I have been out there and we see what our waters look like. See, a lot of Bahamians don't know what out there look like. They know what around the coast look like.
Of course. And then they have some other islands like St. Martin and St. Bart's that are...
They got little mountains and they look mountainous and stuff, but they ain't got the kind of prettiness we got.
Well, the thing is, it's more for St. Bart's and places like that. It's more like traditional that on New Year's, you
Yeah.
On go to St. Bart's for the New Year.
And plus, they get...
this is something that happens. It's a tradition more than anything else, right?
But we do the same thing. And we do the same thing in Staniel Key. Staniel for New Year's.
Listen to me. I had the pleasure of to go to the Abacos, and then I just got back from San Salvador a few days ago on Exumas and whatnot. And there's no other country, bar none, that has the kind of natural beauty as the Bahamas.
No, not when it comes to the waters. No way.
Most of the yachts that are being built are built for the Bahamas. And I can tell you because I've had ship owners who would have contacted me and gotten advice on different drafts and whatnot, so that when they build their boats, they have the right type of draft so that they can go certain places and most places throughout the archipelago. Right?
That's right.
And so, with that said, I am convinced that this whole argument about yachts potentially not coming to the Bahamas because of taxes and whatnot. Mm-hmm. I think that's something I don't think that is something that's factual. I don't think it's based really on truly on the reality on the ground because most of the yachts are owned by people who have means.
Yeah.
And the taxes
and chartered by people who have means.
Yeah, when the taxes went juxtaposed to other taxes throughout around the region itself, like for example, costs for anchoring and all them other stuff, costs for takeout to remove garbage from the ship and all this stuff. I don't think we are so far out there, and I don't think that's going to be a real issue. I believe that's an issue that's being manufactured to a large degree, because like I said, I talked to most of the ship owners, and guess what? Most of these yachts, particularly the 80+ footers, when they leave the Bahamas, they tips alone for crew and staff. They start at $25,000-$30,000 in tips.
Yeah, that's just the thing about it is tips. Gratuity alone is way higher than the stocks.
Exactly. So and that's normal, traditional. It happens every year. So I don't believe. I believe this is a manufactured thing, and I just believe that we as a country and as with the yachting industry within this country, we just have to make sure that we give the yachties value for money. If they feel as though they're getting value for money, trust me, they might have to up the game, of course. But if the people are getting value for money, and a lot, and most of the customers I dealt with are customers who who come year after year, for the most part, they're going to continue to come, and they're going to continue to enjoy this beautiful environment that we offer here in the Bahamas. So I don't think that's a big issue per se.
Let me tell you what I realized. You and I patrol the waters for many, many years. The high seas, the banks, the cuts, the chains.
Everywhere in the Bahamas.
We've been all over the place. And not until after I got out of the Defense Force patrols, when I went to the port, I got a short job with this company called Carpe Diem, where we were taking guests on a big ship with some catamarans, 4 catamarans on each side. Now you use the fellas, all the part them were like so, but they were sailors. Them fellas was taking them catamarans on there and hooking up with the mothership every day, every evening for dinner. The mothership had a disco on board and all the rest of that, right? And until I went down there to spot out the locations where the mothership could go and anchor, because the mothership had 12-foot draft. Until I gone between those areas with that single foot, 12-foot draft, 100 and something mothership, I could not appreciate how beautiful Atlantic Sea Park was. Because I was looking at it from a different perspective. I wasn't on a patrol boat.
Of course.
And I saw what these people be freaking out on all that. Mind you, so I had to freak me out because I looking at our waters every day.
Yeah.
But when you get in certain sections of that, and I don't care who you is, not much Bahamian you is, if you ain't never been down there before and see that, you will freak out.
Yeah, well, of course.
If these tourists ain't gonna find that nowhere else in the world, I've been all over the world, I can tell you. There are some places I haven't been, but I don't think I've seen anything that looks in competing neck and neck with what we have in this country, especially next to Atlantic Sea Park.
You look at it, everybody has money, Cap. Everybody who has money wants a piece of this rock. Everybody.
That's how it is.
And that is not a joke. You could look at all the keys and exhumers and look at the amount of star power that we attract on a daily basis. Everybody wants a piece of the rock. So you're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
But there's a question I want to ask because, how do we, and this is a very serious question, because how do we police this whole business, even though we say we want a little bit more of the pie to do a little bit more for the people and the country, how do we police that? Because realistically speaking, the yachting industry, particularly most of the charter companies, have been getting away with murder for many, many years, because the 4% is only applicable to vessels where the charter originate out of the Bahamas. And once that server is abroad and people book online, that's a loophole that we have endured for many years, where it appears as though that the charter is originating somewhere other than in the Bahamas. So the 4%, even though the 4% that's applicable to the entire charter, the total charter, is never really realized.
Well, I don't want you to think it wasn't realized. It just wasn't forwarded to the port department.
Yeah.
In most cases, these people who charter these yachts pay this 4%, but they pay it to the agents. Mm-hmm. And the agents, they know how slack we are. So they take chances. They may pay us some, but they ain't gonna pay us all. And in some cases, they ain't paying us none. Because they know we ain't got no enforcement, right? And what I started to do when I was working at the port is I realized that because one of the agents told me what was going on when I went to one boat charter and boat yacht show, right? And I said, what? He said, yeah. And he gave me this book called the CDI Guide. I don't think it named that no more. But you could go online and you could get a list of every single vessel that charters in Florida, right? And what I did with that CDI Guide is that was like a list alphabetically of every charter vessel in Florida at the time. And because, the U.S. had them in their system as charter vessels. So I would check with the marinas. I would send the port staff, and it was God in particular, God Stubbs. God may his soul rest in peace. And me and God started doing it, and then I used to send God by himself. Go to Marina and actually physically write down every vessel in that marina. And on a daily basis, we would do that. And then in the office, I would check that list against the CDI guy to see if any of them are chartered vessels. And if any of them are chartered vessel, we tell the marina, this is a chartered vessel, we didn't see a 4% coming for this vessel, yada, yada, yada. And we started to do it. But it was only me and him. And, I used to travel a lot. And I used to be busy. But once I got out of the port, I don't think that gone anywhere else.
Well, no, just for your information, we did it as well. When I was at the port, we actually had relationships with some of the dock masters who would call us and say, well, this boat on charter, they spoke to the occupants, some of the occupants from the vessel who indicated that they had charter guests on board. And then we would have gone over on so many occasions, and we were able to verify that the vessel on charter. We actually got some payment on the spot that they report to the port department and pay and the like. But it all boils down to really and truly to the enforcement. And
it boils down to the port department. And it also boils down to the port department working in liaison with those wardens in the Land and Sea Park. Because those wardens, they almost aware of every vessel that come into the do charter. And if they could get a list from those wardens on a daily basis, because we started to get, the marina started to fax us a list of all the vessels that came in for that day. And that made our life easier.
My point in all of that really and truly is, while it sounds good that we're going to be potentially having more revenue from the charter vessels, how do we ensure that we're not shortchanging ourselves when we actually get that revenue?
Now you got to do with menu. You got to do with menu. Just discuss that we were actually we had in place. Although it wasn't on a major scale, we had it in place. And like I told you, once you lock up one of those fellas who vessels sink and they won't pay the money, you lock one of them up, the rest will fall in line. You lock up one of those charter boats, only one. That message will run like wildfire. The rest of them wouldn't take that chance.
All right. Well, Cap, thank you very much for the opportunity. I think we're on to something. We just got to make sure our politicians see it the same way.
Yeah, man. Appreciate the call as always. And well, the show's still going on. So if you want to call back, because I got one anchorage issue coming up, you might want 2 and 2.
Indeed. Thank you.
Okay, my brother. Thank you. Yes, that's a great general. Captain Herbert Brain, special friend of mine, my best friend. And we share some of the same spaces back in the day. We tread along the same path. And that's why both of us are experienced captains that really could speak to most of these things. The number to call here is 326-8255. You're listening to Maritime Matters. I am Captain Glenn Bean, your host. And we, so far, has only been talking about 2 of our litany of topics. Tonight, we were talking about the allocation of the $2.25 million for the removal of sunken vessels around the country. And we started to talk about the RCI. They want to fill the 150 posts at the Paradise Island Beach Club. And I think by the end of, is it next month or month after, they want to have those positions filled. And we stretched that into Coco Key and finding out why they had so much foreigners on Coco Key. Yes, they had a big, the other day, a big protest where most of those foreigners decided they were being taken advantage of. And that's how we got to know those numbers, like 1 in 10 as Bahamians and all the rest of that. Okay. Caller, you're on line 1. Hello.
Welcome back, Captain Ben.
Oh, thank you so much, my dear. It's so good to be back in the chair.
Listening to repeats.
Thank you. Oh, that's something. I'm glad you didn't call in on those repeats. You know those repeats, right?
Yeah.
How you doing, my dear?
Well, I'm calling to comment on the 150
posts?
Persons. The 150 workers.
Yeah, workers, employees.
So they're supposed to be a part of the second phase of that development, right? So they need to build a water activity area and continue on with the construction. So what they did was give contracts for entrepreneurial opportunities to Bahamians to go and, provide services on the beach.
Yeah, but they say this one didn't have anything to do with the contractors who come into who are going to be contracted. Who say these people are going to be paid by RCI. These are not contracts. I trying to figure out what they could be doing.
The article says that these positions are likely related to the new water park development and other port operations.
So these people wouldn't be...
The project is expected to significantly increase employment opportunities at the port.
I'm asking you, these 150 posts, are these post people that will be working directly for RCI, or would these be contractors bringing in their own staff and contracted to do work at the beach club? Because the impression I'm getting
they're going to work for the further development of the port.
Or they're not going to be working once the thing is finished?
Right.
Oh.
So those people that got contracted, who got contracts to service the port once it opens, they are the ones that will benefit from the cruise passengers going over there.
Right. Okay, so these 150 posts that they're talking about.
Yeah, according to the newspaper article, it says that these positions are likely related to the new water park development and other port operations.
Right.
The project is expected to significantly increase employment opportunities at the port.
Yeah, but my big concern about this whole thing is we are very careful that we use Bahamians at this beach club. For the most part. I mean, predominantly Bahamians. Right. But then if you go to Coco Key, you Bahamians are 1 in 10. How come? And we in the same country.
Well, what I wanted to comment on is the Minister for Immigration amended the Immigration Act to pass on a $3 fee to the workers from the cruise ship that come ashore to work.
No, they can't come. They can't come ashore to work unless they be Bahamians. So what the minister is doing is violating our Immigration Act then, because the Immigration Act say if you don't have the requisite work permit, you're not a Bahamian, you don't have the requisite permit, you can't be employed. Now, are they giving work permits to people working on the ship to come ashore and work?
Right.
No, man. No, we ain't got people. But why they doing that at RCI?
Well, let me finish my comment.
At the beach club.
It's $3 per day, right? For those that come off the ship. So you have people like photographers and...
Yeah, we got Bahamians who could do photography.
Yeah, but how are they going to sell it back when they get back to the cruise ship? They develop it and then they sell it back.
Yeah, the Bahamians can take the picture and give it to them to carry back to the ship.
But anyway, you obviously didn't investigate the $3 fee.
No, I don't know number the $3 fee because I don't think they should even come ashore and do no work. I don't think I have a problem with the $3 fee. That's why I don't even want to know.
You have a problem with it after you educate yourself on it. You have to know what it is that he's trying to do.
No, but I'm talking based on you telling me people from the ship. Now, I've been on cruise ships. I know those people who's be taking pictures and trying to get you to buy them later on.
That was just an example I was using, but currently they do it anyway on these private islands. There's no one policing
That's why I am screaming out, because I know they're doing it.
Right, so isn't it better for us to get a...
No, it's better for us to get Bahamians to do those jobs and tell them they can't come off the ship to do it. That's what's best. That's what we should be doing. The same thing with Carnival in Grand Bahama Celebration Key. I bet you, well, I can't talk too bad with Carnival because I've been at Half Moon Key, and I didn't quite go to see what Princess Key setup is all about. But Half Moon Key has predominantly Bahamians, I must say that. But that...
And Disney also.
Disney got plenty foreigners. Don't tell me. I know.
Yeah, but they got a lot of Bahamians, and they constantly recruiting, so that means Bahamians are not taking the jobs.
Don't say Bahamians ain't taking the jobs. See, all them people in Albuquerque who wouldn't mind going there and working. Man, let me tell you something. That Bahamians ain't want to do this. That's the guy they want to say, oh, Bahamians ain't want to go to sea. How much Bahamians know they could go to sea, see the world for free, get paid, eat all day, and would wish to have that opportunity, but nobody bringing it to them because they living over the hill and they never could go nowhere to find us out. Man, look here, before we had a defense force, I guess they would say, you can't find Bahamians to have a defense force because they ain't going to go to sea. That's foolishness. We need to sell to our people, especially those who, the lesser among us, who don't have somebody to give them a hand up, so that they could go out there certify themselves and get on those international ships. And once they do that, they could work on any one of these keys without having a problem because they don't used to being away from home. And we got people working on these keys all the time so who are Bahamians. It's just that they want people there who they could pay little or nothing. They could take advantage of. And they, because you know what happens if Bahamians eventually take over. When we strike, they get listen to us. They don't want that either. Man, I so sick of these people coming in our country and we got politicians who just all they want to do is get a couple dollars and anything go down. You know?
You causing me to lose my thoughts. But anyway, the Immigration Act was amended as of the 1st of July 25 to introduce a new daily fee of $3 for a work visa. So that's what it's called, a work visa to people employed on the passenger ship.
So they giving
which
them
includes national insurance contribution, fall under the Immigration Fee Amendment Act of 2025 regulations. Sorry, of
so
2025.
So they're giving them a license to keep Bahamians unemployed on those keys.
Well, I think that they do it anyway, and it's better for us to get something.
No, it's better for us to get the right
thing. As long as you don't
thing.
have a person stationed on these private islands.
Yeah, but these cruise ships could afford to have people, Bahamians, living on these private islands or living on Great Harbour Key and Eleuthera like they do for Half Moon Key. And the people come to work in the morning and go back home in the evening. There's nothing wrong with that, you know. But the cruise ships don't even want to pay for that. They want the people to come with the ship.
But
who they ain't
I
gonna
don't
pay
think
for.
it's crucial. I think it's the negotiation and brokering of the initial deal.
Yeah, but don't
Because
broker in violation of our Immigration Act.
No,
That's
all
what
of
I
these
said.
things needed to be negotiated when they actually purchased and got the heads of agreement. These things
That's
should
not
have been
true.
included in from that stage, and that's the reason why.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
when
why
you get-
should they pay it after the fact when it wasn't a part of the deal?
Yeah, but why would you put in your agreement something that violates your law to ensure
Well,
that
it
your
doesn't
behavior...
violate the law anymore if he made an amendment to have a visa, a work visa.
I agree it don't violate it if he does that, but if he does that, he's causing Bahamians to lose out on possible jobs. That's my point.
It's already done, so...
Yeah, but that means he already did it. And my problem is it shouldn't be done. And I stick into that. That's
Okay,
the foolishness we just do to cause Bahamians to don't have opportunities. That's all I say. And we always talk about put Bahamians first. Put Bahamians first.
Even at the shipyard in Grand Bahama, I tried to count how many jobs they've posted over the week, right? Hundreds of jobs, I guess, for the new dry dock that's coming in.
Yeah, but now most of them is technical. Most of those are technical
Foundationally,
jobs.
right? If we have positioned ourselves to become the largest dry docking facility, and we've contracted with all those major cruise lines to bring in their, we need to have a school designated specifically for training and certifying welders and all of these different things. I mean, it's almost like 200 jobs.
Yeah, but that's 20 years ago. And from 20 years ago, I was saying that. But nobody's listening to me anyhow.
Right.
But
So now they have
when
larger dry dock, and there's no workers. So don't say that it's not their fault. It's all to do with the initial planning and.
It's not whose fault. It's the government fault. I say it's nobody else's fault.
Right, and
It's the government's fault.
And it's no specific government because.
I didn't say it was no specific government. I said the government of the Bahamas. I ain't talking about no administration.
Right.
It's the government fault. Because when they came in, the government noticed here for a long while. All right, they're 20 years in now. You think they could be 20 years down the road? What are we putting in place? We got a whole maritime school called LJM. We got a facility in Freeport called Grand Bahama Shipyard who's willing to assist in training people to come and take some of these jobs. But the government ain't doing nothing.
They need the amount of people that they're looking to recruit in just this week's newspaper alone.
No, they have to bring in foreigners at this point. But
No.
when are we going to replace them? How are we going to plan to replace them? That's what I want to know.
No,
You don't
but what
let's
I'm
sit
saying
by
is
and say we got
that in itself
600 foreigners.
constitutes a need for a school that's specific to training now.
Yeah, but
Because
we
if
could
you-
bring
if
in
you
people.
have
We could bring in first.
6,000 If you have 6,000 students graduating and you have 200 plus jobs being advertised for, and these skills, they vary. So when, these people could have got the first initial exposure, then work a little bit, then go back to school and work a little bit. These jobs, over the period of time, as the shipyard grew, the populace or the people serving them should have grown.
No, the
and
shipyard,
we should have implemented some type of training facility for that specific purpose.
Yeah, but the shipyard didn't grow, you know. The shipyard had 3 docks, right? I mean, they're getting bigger now because those ones were destroyed. The shipyard had 3 docks. Those docks were servicing ships. The reality is from 2000, from 1999 when that came in, the first dock, we should have started to affiliate ourselves like they did in India, like they did in the Philippines, like they did in Ukraine, to have certain Bahamians going off to do fitter training, welder training. And then eventually we could bring some of the professionals who doing the training here and set up shop here, just like they did at the container port. You know how much training they did for those guys to be able to drive those gantry cranes and straddle carriers? It has to be organized. The government needs to inject something in there. Because I don't blame the cruise ships if they don't want to pay for it. Or because they could bring in people. But the government should look out for our own people and get our own people up to speed by causing certain things to be planned out. You got institutions that could assist with that. But our governments have been so lousy across the board. We're talking 20 years. Ain't nobody gonna leave out.
So in this article, it says that the Prime Minister has defended the government's position, and he intends to replace the work permits over the next 15 years. So Mr. Sayers says that immigration collected $108 million for work permit in 23.
Yeah, they collect it. You see, that's like our solar power right now, right? The government collecting money when fuel come in for BC to burn. So if we go solar and ain't no fuel coming, the government ain't getting that money no more. So the government ain't have no real interest in us going solar because they want to keep that money. It's the same situation here.
Well, I thought that something needs to be done, and somehow these people coming off the cruise ships and working on the island and disenfranchising Bahamians, this is a good step. I think it's something at least that they're getting something. It's $3 per day for what they call a work visa.
So this is a perfect opportunity for them to make these cruise ships have Bahamians. I talk about even as simple as this. You know, the cruise ships own all the jet skis on these keys, and no Bahamian jet ski franchise could even go there and solicit for work. We need to fix these things, man, and that only happened because this particular politician who I know about back in the day got grease to keep us out of it, keep the Bahamians out of it.
Yeah.
And it's still going on, but we need to get away from these things, and Bahamian entrepreneurs could do all of these things: the jet ski, the parasail, the non-motorized. We do them in Nassau. So why we could do all of these things in Nassau, but when it comes to them private islands and stuff, we can't find Bahamians? That's foolishness. All these hotels we got in Nassau, big time hotels with people cleaning up rooms and maintenance for yard to do buildings, to do this, to do that. We have qualified people to do these things, but the cruise ship and them aim was spend the right amount of money to have these things done. They rather bring people in, pay them peanuts, and get the things done and skirt around our government system, skirt around our people. Cause they mean really and truly, why should they care about us? You think they care about us? Our government should care about us, not them. I don't blame them for not caring about us, you know.
Yeah, like I say, I think that from the beginning of the negotiation for the sales is when all of these things should have come to the fore and be built into something. I mean, the mechanisms, even for, like I say, you say in the dry dock, you know, it's astonishing to me that they advertise for all those jobs, and they're consistently doing it too. So, you know, as I guess they get bigger, they get another project, then they need all of these workers. But Bahamians could never fill all of those positions.
Yeah, we could fill those positions if our government care enough to set us up to fill them.
Oh, well, yeah.
Our government got to care enough, and I ain't talking about no administration. I say our government, and that's why we need to have certain plans in place. Get together with the shipyard and make some plans. The shipyard prepared to do it, you know. They ain't trying to duck out. But if our government ain't checking, why they get check? Why should they like us more than our government?
Right.
Man, we just in a sorry state. I hate to think of these things sometimes, but I watched that shipyard coming from 1999. I went over there to do the inspection for the second dry dock they had. And I realized at that time what they was all about, and I wanted to know how we can prepare Bahamians in the long run to be able to take care of these jobs. Because
you know, the Bahamas is holding its own. I mean, you might say that we have our problems internally, but to be the largest dry dock facility in the region is an amazing accomplishment. You know, like
no, but you gotta understand why that happening.
I mean, people need to benefit from the jobs, and the only way to do that is to actually create a school that certifies them as welders, that gives them the opportunity specific to that dry dock. If you're looking for over 200 people to employ, you need a school that's going to be focused on that skill or that trade.
Yeah, but you could put a whole section in our national maritime school just for, because that's maritime stuff they deal with. But they could work on ships as fitters and learn how to do those things. You know, they don't have to learn all that online. They could go out to sea and learn that. That's how the Filipinos do it. Do you know when I was managing 2 ships here, we brought in all the fitters from the Philippines. We brought in all the engineers from between the Philippines, and then we had some in the Caribbean, but none, I think 1 or 2 from the Bahamas, and it was only 1 or 2 was qualified. But even now, you look at the marine tanker fleet, them fellas out Clifton Pier, who just be going to Family Island to carry fuel. I don't even know if they got 2 Bahamian engineers on those vessels, and they got like 6 or 8 of them.
But do you
vessels.
realize there's no certification for an engineer
What you
in the
talking about?
Bahamas? There's no requirement for it.
But there's requirement for an engineer on board one of those vessels, because those vessels are soulless vessels.
Okay, well, but I'm saying domestically, you know, we need to build up, and the only way to do that is through education, and we need
that's why we got a whole big defense force. We got that maritime fleet at Clifton Pier is domestic. They might go to Cuba. They don't go to the US, you know. Might go to Cuba and Grand Turk and Jamaica every now and then. But most of their runs are domestic runs. But we could get our people qualified. Just, okay, if you check the deck side, right? How come we could qualify all our people to be mates and captains and things, but we can't find no engineers? Because we're not focusing on and telling people and going into the schools and letting these young people know and all the rest of that. Well, the BMA done a mess. The Port Department can't blame them because they ain't know none of them things. But the government needs the arm, the BMA, to start doing what they're supposed to do when it comes to providing opportunities for women in the maritime field. And because the BMA knows about what needs to happen based on their CCW code, and they in bed with all these ship owners, they need to make these things happen. The government need to put pressure on them to make these things happen. It shouldn't be me trying to put the pressure on them.
I believe you were saving up all of your comments from the last 3 weeks, because I haven't been able to get to my last and final point, because I'm making my point, but you not listening.
Man, you got all 25 minutes to go, man.
My last comment is on the yacht, the introduction of I don't know, I wouldn't say an elimination of the VAT, but I just feel that, you know, it could have been done in a way that they had an opportunity to adjust to the new regulation, you know.
No, I don't think anything changed.
Give them, maybe make the amendment during the budget and then give them until December to flesh it out, you know.
No, but ain't nothing changed as far as how much money they got to spend. So I don't.
Some of these yachts are booked for 1 year in advance.
Yeah, but ain't nothing changed but the amount of money they got to spend. All they do is, instead of paying 10% VAT, they put that 10% on the 4% and say, now you have 14% charter fee. That ain't nothing changed.
No, there's some other changes.
Like what?
They get separate fishing permits.
No, that ain't nothing to do with the charter vessels.
Yeah, but the charter vessels come to do fishing.
No, the charter vessels already have a permit to be here. They need to, them things don't apply to them.
Yes, they amended those as well.
They are for private vessels. Any vessel would come in and need to clear, they got to pay them things.
Yeah, they increased.
Yeah, but that ain't nothing to do with the charter vessels. That's what they said.
I'm saying they increased. It's all increased Everything is increased. The
Ain't
fees
nothing
are all
increased for the charter
now.
vessels.
The fishing vessel used to be one and a part of the same, right?
They had a cruising permit.
I mean, not the fishing vessel.
You could have a cruising permit to
license.
just cruise the waters, or you could have a cruising permit to cruise the waters and fish. That's so all they saying.
They
I think
amended the fees for those as well.
yeah, they going too high. It don't make no sense. I don't know what they're trying to prove. That don't make that's I got that on my next topic.
Okay, next week.
No, tonight the backlash on visiting boaters clearance
You're running all the
facilitation.
time because you're talking so long.
Well, you have to call back because I got plenty to say on that.
Okay, then I can call back.
Thank you so much, darling.
Bye.
You take care. That's my favorite caller. Yeah, but she's very, very knowledgeable with her maritime stuff. So I don't want y'all to think she easy. Just that made us like the row. But she contributes heavily to the show. And I think I better take my first break. I ain't taking no break yet. Wow. Since ain't nobody calling, and we about to move on to the backlash that this country is receiving from those foreign boaters on the facilitation fees. They're going up on all these fees, right? And I don't think it's right, but we'll talk about that when we come back. I'm your host, Captain Glenn Bain. You're listening to Maritime Matters, and on this show, we talk maritime. Maritime Matters as every Tuesday at 5:05 p.m. until 18:30 or 6:30 p.m. So we got another 20 minutes-ish. We're going to run to a quick break, and we'll be back to challenge this backlash that we're facing for going up on these fees for the new fiscal year.
At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling Building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection. At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart.
The best in hits and oldies. Love 97.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, then I'll watch them roll away again. Yeah, I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching.
Welcome back. Maritime Tech Matters. I'm your host, Captain Glenn Bain. Our wonderful producer tonight is Mr. Craig Gibson himself, man the myth. We are trying to cover a litany of topics. We've done the two big ones, but we got about 5 left. Okay. Okay, so we ain't got 5 left. We only got 15, 20 minutes, right? So we got about 3 left, right? And the topics, the number to call us, by the way, it's 326-8255. That's 326-8255. Yeah, replay of this show or any of our previous shows, simply hit us up at any time via our YouTube page. That's Maritime Matters Bahamas. That's the guy say, I love you. Maritime Matters Bahamas. You go to your search box on YouTube and type into that search box Maritime Matters Bahamas, and you'll see a litany of our shows from way back in the day up to the most recent. You can choose any one of them you want to listen to. you will be hearing us just like we live, right? Make it live, you know. So let's talk maritime. The topics that we covered already includes the allocated $2.25 million for removal of sunken vessels. You know that brings up a big point, policy. And they have that tug and barge off Marsh Harbor that really needs to be moved. And then you have in other areas of the Bahamas, there's some boats that need to be moved. Now, the rule generally is if you don't move it, we can move it at your expense. But we used to be saying that we have no money to move it. Now, they put some money in the budget so we can move it at their expense, but now we have to follow up and make sure they pay. So we pay up front, and then we put them in court to make sure the money come back out of them, even if we gotta take the other boat and sell it or whatever the case may be, right? Or lock them up. And my friend Herb said, they ain't gonna lock nobody up. So I don't know. I don't believe that, because I see people get locked up for other things. So that was the first topic. Second topic is the RCI to fill 150 posts at Paradise Island Beach Club. You know, they got a big time beach club getting ready to open up the end of this year. And they already appointed some of the very top level senior people. But now they're getting down to the nitty gritty, where they're getting the middle management and then the lower end, I guess. And that's a lot of people, 150 people. That tells you that it's going to be a real big operation going on there. It ain't going to be as big as Coco Keto. And I say, if they got 150 for this section here, Coco Key must get up 250. Bahamians could be up there on a daily basis, because you know they got ships every day. Sometimes they got two. That dog don't play. That is a busy spot. That ain't no less busy than how Carnival could be at Celebration Key when that all finished. So we need to make sure that whether it's on Freeport mainland or Nassau mainland or a private key, the laws of the Bahamas still apply, and they shouldn't have no foreigners on those keys without working permit. And if they have working permit, they shouldn't be for something that Bahamians can do. Yeah, man, we need to get serious in our country, and we need to get our enforcers and our politicians who are in charge of the. You realize the politicians in charge of every government entity? You have a minister in charge. And although you have a director of this, or commissioner of this, or the top of this, whatever you have, you report to a minister, and that minister dictates and directs how you do your job. So I don't want nobody to be thinking, oh, the politicians really don't do the enforcement. But you try to do something and the politicians say for that, see what happens. You ain't gonna be doing that no more. You can be doing something else. But anyway, that's just how the cookies crumble. Again, the number to call if you want to reach me is 326-8255. Let's move on next to the charter fees, the yacht charter fees slashed, and the response that the FNM or the opposition in the House of Assembly had pertaining to this, which I think is kind of out of line, right? I mean, I can't tell them what to say and what not to say on how to see things, but because you're the opposition, don't mean you need to oppose things that are good for the country. That's how I see things now. Some things, yes, I bet you, yeah, give them some spanks, they need to do better. But if you're stepping on the line, I got to call it out, eh? Will this charter fee become a political football, I would have asked. Because if the government see things differently every time we the people change the government, it can affect these people who have these yachts. And not only yachts, they got some stuff going on now with cruising permits for non-commercial vessels. Commercial vessels don't need cruising permits. They're registered to trade. They come to trade. But non-commercial vessels, the set would come with their family. Right? I want you to know the charter yacht is a commercial vessel. They have a permit to do what they do. Right? But the set would come in with their family. They ain't gonna buy no plane ticket. They ain't gonna pay for no hotel room because they're living on the yacht. These people just come to visit us. So in the face of those foreigners, we can't be changing things up and down to make them, for them to try and figure out what the Bahamas doing next. We have to be consistent and we have to be reasonable in our fees. And the F&M government is urging that the government repeal the charter VAT, fold that revenue into a revised port tax, and set a rate of 10 to 12%. So, what the government in essence did was they stopped charging VAT, that 10% VAT, and decide instead of that being VAT, we'll add that to the 4% port fees, and now you'll pay 14% port fee. So you don't have to come to us and register for VAT no more, which I thought was a good thing, because it was kind of stupid, in my opinion. For me as a foreigner coming into your country, got to register with your VAT partner to pay VAT? That don't make no sense to me. So the government did what I thought was a great move, right? But the opposition still thinks something wrong with it. Oh, they saying bring it down a bit. And based on the article I read, and I quote this section now. I quote this section from that article. It said, the F&M urged the government to repeal the charter VAT. In other words, crush the VAT thing, which the government is doing. According to what the article is saying, they convert that VAT to the fees. Fold that revenue into a revised port tax. Okay, that's what the government did. And set the rate 10 to 12%. So if the rate set down to 14%, and you saying, your opposition now saying do it 10 to 12, so let's say 12. That's only 2% difference. So what's all this talk about? What sense this talk making if you're only talking about 2% difference from 14% to 12%? I don't understand that argument. 2% difference. Anyway, if the entity is paying for the charter, and you would have heard myself and Captain Brain talk about this, if the people who are paying for the charter can afford $80,000 a week for the charter, plus an additional 20% of that for grats, for the people who work on the ship, the cook, the bartender, the foot cleaner, the sweeper, the bedroom taker. You know, they got people take you out on a speedboat to do snorkeling, whatever they got going on. You tip them, right? Because all of them living on that boat with you. And they catering to you straight through. I want you to know those charter boats, them people that spend their money, and they just be catered to. They ain't supposed to lift a hand to do nothing. That's why they paying all the money. But they can afford it, otherwise they wouldn't be able to do it. So all we asking is, while you're paying all that money, you done up to $100 and something thousand, right? We want 14% of what the charter costs. Not all of that you spend. 14% of that 80,000. And you can't cry at us and tell us you can't afford it, because we know you can afford it. But you know who crying us? The people who own the marinas. The people who doing the brokerage for the charters. They decided to crying us, because when they could have sneaked some of the money, I think we tightening up the noose now. It's hard for them to sneak that now. But anything they could do to make things look good from their perspective is fine. They can never cut down on that 20% for grats. But they want the government to make 14%. And they true and true are good, nice, pretty waters. Boy, I tell you. I think the 14% is quite fitting. I think it's a little low, but for now it's quite fitting, right? If you want to go up on it later on, fine. But we can't be paying attention to the smoke screen that those special interest groups are trying to sell us. Pay the piper and hush your mouth. That's what I say. Again, if you have a difficulty with that, or if you have a different view, or if you think I'm wrong, let the world know. 326-8255 is the number to call. Or if you think I'm right, still give me a call. Say, boy, I think you're right on it. You know, them people just take advantage of us too much, man. Make them pay. They got money. They coming in here and enjoying our nice beauty. Pay. You pay everywhere else you go. Now, we got the backlash on visiting boaters' clearance facilitation fees. Now, this one, should these fees be increased for our visitors? You can remember these people are coming in a private boat just to visit the Bahamas. Some of them come all the time. Some of them come once in a while. Some of them ain't got no boat. Whenever they get a boat, they want to come and check it out, because where else they can go from Florida? The only place that they go if they pass us is what? Cuba, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, because the Eastern Caribbean far. To get to Turks and Caicos far. To get to Cayman and Jamaica far. You gotta go all the way around Cuba. So you ain't really got much option there. Not if you're in Florida, right? So it's cheaper. You come to us and enjoy our islands. And you find that these families and friends and lovers and whatnot that be coming over, they spend money. They're not like, they spend far more money than the people on the cruise ship. Now, the people on the cruise ship outnumber them 100 to 1. So I ain't trying to tell you they're more important than the cruise ship passengers. That's a joke. Cruise ships beat them bad because they have that volume. But these people on these yachts, I ain't talking about no charter yachts. I talking about these people who just coming on their little private yachts. They just go in our food store and buy food. They go buy card, the phone, and put minutes on the thing and have internet and stuff like that. There ain't no people with no big bunch of money like these people on these charter yachts. But my thing is, they coming to visit us. Why are we trying to achieve, or what are we trying to achieve by doing this increase on them? How could we lose sight of the fact that these are visitors to our country that are coming in to spend money? I think they should be treated with more welcoming arms, eh? More welcoming than the ones on the cruise ship. Because them said only passing through, and they keeping a lion's share of the money on board the ship anyhow. So are those that bring themselves via their own vessels and not come as passengers on charter yachts or cruise ships, are they being penalized by you goofing up so high on how much they got to pay just to come to our country? How can it be made mandatory for all vessels coming into the Bahamas carry an AIS? Because our government would like to know where you are at all times. Well, if that's the case, fine. The government want to know where I is all the time. Well, give me an AIS to put on my ship, and when I leave it, I'll give it back to you. Don't ask me to buy an AIS just so you could know where I is all the time. That don't happen nowhere else in the world. That don't even make sense. Now, you gotta remember the AIS, or Automatic Identification System, is a component that is put on board and it tells where your ship is at all times. Right? Through your radar, of course. Some of these ships even ain't got a radar. And the question came up, what happened, fellas? Some people leave Florida in jet skis. So what gonna happen to them when they reach? You want a jet ski to have an AIS? No, them jet skis come and it's clear and have fun and go back. Spend a day in a hotel or wherever they want to be, gambling or just drinking and partying, and then they go back to the States the same day because jet skis fast. So all these questions coming up, and I don't think our government set it out properly to specify and verify exactly which vessels can have AIS. And I understand from the Minister of National Security came up in the House and said afterwards that it should only apply to vessels, I think he says 70 feet or something like that, 70 feet long, 80 feet long. Well, AIS is an international requirement for commercial ships. Now I can tell you that, I happen to know that, right? For commercial ships, and it is to be fitted under the International Safety Radio Certification Scheme. And the ships that are required to have a safety radio certificate has to be at least 300 gross tons. And I can tell you 300 gross tons is much bigger than almost any one of them private yachts we see coming there, except of course the the mega ones that go to Albany and some of them, and because some of them are private yachts, although they charter. The charter ones are different, but the ones that don't charter, strictly private yachts, you have some big ones, but those are very expensive, and they will have AIS on board, right? But the regular mom and pop, that coming through to our Bahamas just to spend a couple weeks island hopping, they are not required to carry AIS anywhere in the world. But our government is saying they got to put one on just to come here. Somebody don't know what the hell they doing, what they talking about. Because that cannot, even the big IMO don't require that internationally. But our government require that. I suppose a fellow won't come to the sweetheart name one. Let me stop and get one call for that. Somebody call me for that, right? You all like that sweetheart talk. Anyhow, that's this AIS operation that the government want to make these people have. In my opinion, they need to drop that because that don't make no sense. There's no application for that, and it's really a onerous setup or situation you putting these people in. It don't make no sense. What I don't want nobody to know, I suggest that the ones who coming here just to visit with their family or with their friends or whatever the case is, they come in for a couple of weeks just to pass through and go back to the States. And they really into no fishing, they ain't got no fishing gear, they ain't trying to fishing, they get in restaurants every evening, they get in the marinas and all the rest of that. Well, oh shit, you got 2 minutes left? Well, why? My time not gone. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't realize my time ran away with me like that, right? And we are finishing up the backlash we got from those boats. Next week we'll talk about the establishment and regulation of anchorage zones in our country, because there's a lot of that in the press. Didn't get to that. And then we talk a little bit about the fly fishing guides, right? We understanding that most of them are up in age and they're dying out. And in recent times, past couple of years, we lost over 25% of what we used to have. So we got to find some young people to really train them up to be fishing guides. There's a lot of money involved in that, especially if they could get their own setup. And I really wish I could get somebody like Prescott, one of those guys, to come in and call in and assist with that. I'll try to reach out to Prescott and see what he has to say and talk to him about that. Because we need to address that the best way we could approach this. Because we saying our foreigners want to do it, but we need to make sure we got enough behemoths to do it, eh? So ladies and gentlemen, as you can tell, most of you probably realize I'm not 100% today. You know, I was still battling, still coming back from this thing called the flu. I think I'm 80%. Tomorrow I'll be 90%, and then on Thursday I'll be 100%. But next week Tuesday I'll be 100%. So we'll have a lot to cover as usual. And again, I say thanks to my sponsors, Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, also Island Care Pharmacy in Freeport, and 101 Pharmacy here in Nassau. I'd like to say thank you to my producer, Mr. Craig Gibson, keeping things ticking. I want to say thank you to my callers, Captain Brain and my lady. Just keep calling, let's keep it rolling. I want to say thank you for you tolerating me under these conditions. I haven't been in here for a while, but I hope you had something to learn today. I hope that next week you will give us some call and let us know what you think about some of these maritime changes in this country. And we may put in some international stuff. You know, a lot of wars going on. I saw old warmonger, but I don't want to talk about that today. And that's how we can roll for next week. So, Anime, good night to you again. Everybody know my Anime is always listening. She's always in there, and she's our #1 fan. So, Anime, good night to you again. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Love 97. You have been listening to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Ben Bade. And with that, we say Maritime Matters. Out.
On the dock